Buckley and Buckley Systems and CEO Aaron Smith, and I think Chairman of the Board, Janice Ehrlich. Thank you for having us here today. I hope you've been enjoying yourselves, media, having a look around. It's one of the great success stories for New Zealand technology. Fantastic place. So today I've been very focused on growing the economy, as I'm sure you know, and part of that growth of the economy is understanding that we already have some fabulous pioneers in New Zealand and people who are already doing fabulous work in technology, but there is so much more that can be done. And I thought that Buckley Systems was a great place for us to come to as one of the pioneers in the technology, but also in the manufacturing of technology. And Tech Centre already produces about 8% of GDP. It employs 100,000 people already, and our tech exports are now $8 billion per annum, which is enormous. That is actually larger than all the forestry and seafood exports combined. And who knew? Well, we know. And it is really important to understand that a lot of this is being driven by companies such as Buckley Systems, but also other companies such as Xero and the Rocket Lab. All these have a fantastic stories for New Zealand. We also have 50,000 New Zealanders who have returned from places like Hong Kong, London and San Francisco, who have been involved in the tech industry for years. And we know that it is really important that we maintain and keep these people here, particularly when they're going to contribute to a growing tech centre. So we want to double the size of New Zealand's tech centre by 2030. We think this is a goal that we should aspire to and one we can achieve. Given another 10-15 years, the tech centre could be bigger than dairying at $20 billion of exports. This is currently $8 billion. Put a bit of effort into, a bit more effort, and we encourage the sector. This could be the way forward, and we believe it is most likely to. It's also an area that has high wages. It's high skilled, high wages, and it is one which is really interesting as well. So we are planning to first get more New Zealanders studying STEM subjects, so that's science, technology, engineering and maths. So to do that, we will establish 1,000 scholarships per year for school leavers to study STEM courses. And part of that, we're particularly targeting children or young people who are coming from low decile schools. We will fund 3 tech graduate schools to improve our postgraduate tech education. And that's allowing Kiwis to study things like artificial intelligence and robotics while they're in New Zealand. I've certainly seen some of the universities and what they've been doing with these, along with industry, and we want to encourage that. We will establish STEM-focused partnership schools, so that will be absolutely focused on STEM. And we will continue to fund National's highly successful trade academies to create pathways into tech for young New Zealanders. Secondly, we already know that we are getting into New Zealand, and I've met some of them in, say, for instance, Queenstown is now becoming a place for tech entrepreneurs all over the world, New Zealanders included, and we would like to use our strengths as a country to attract more of these people. So we will be establishing a new tech visa class to bring tech workers here on a fast-track immigration plan. We will relax the requirements on investor visa class so it's easier to relocate business to New Zealand. We want an ecosystem of tech companies here investing in New Zealand. We will launch a program to attract top PhD students to New Zealand to study for 6 months so they can get to see what we have, but also they can add value and teach others. And Stanford's campus at the moment is deserted right now due to COVID-19. So why don't they come down and study in New Zealand for the summer? And they can. Part of that is actually letting their knowledge spill over, but also building the contacts that are crucial when we're exporting. So these funds that we will be putting in will deploy existing government money to mobilise $600 million of investment in New Zealand's technology centre. We will also create a regulatory environment that attracts tech companies here. So we believe that we could become a testing ground for new disruptive technologies like drones, artificial intelligence and driverless cars. Clearly, we would want to make sure that we had certain zones where that could be done. We're thinking of places like, for instance, Dunedin with the Otago University and the work that they've been doing around this, using them as a hub for it. And these technologies often do not fit existing regulations, and sluggish government will mean companies go elsewhere to trial products. So part of that is we'll establish a regulatory icebreaker unit to respond to new tech development. So this will also continue our investment in our technology infrastructure. So as we know, the ultra-fast broadband that we invested in when we were last in government was crucial during the lockdowns to keep businesses that could continue working, to keep them working. But also we would support the bandwidth heavy tech businesses to operate from New Zealand. We'll invest a further $400 million over the next 4 years, completing the rollout of ultra-fast broadband and improving rural connectivity. And finally, I will appoint a Minister of Technology, and that's to be a champion of the tech sector, to partner with the tech sector and to implement this plan. This is a comprehensive plan to support what is our fourth largest export sector and fastest growing, and that is the tech sector. So we know that there is a better way to what has happened in the past in New Zealand, and we know that, for instance, the ultra-fast broadband rollout was just the start, but people like Bill Buckley have been working for years, for decades, in an area like this where machines here are used all over the world because of their top quality and their ability to deliver. There's no reason at all why we can't be encouraging the tech industry even more in New Zealand. Interesting to find from Bill today that every iPhone, every iPad has the pixels incorporated in it using the machines built here. It's amazing. Isn't it a great story? So I'd like to also acknowledge my colleagues here today, and to particularly acknowledge Andrew Bailey, who has worked with me on this, and also Melissa Lee as well. And we have our science spokesperson, Dr. Parmjeet Palmer, who is a scientist as well, and Denise Lee, our local MP. Thank you.
You said that you'd be looking to install a Minister of Technology under a government led by Chief Collins, who'd be a Minister of Technology.
Yeah, they're all wanting that job. Do you know? I think I should have it.
You think you should have it?
Yeah, I just should have learnt my physics a bit better. No, I think it will be a decision that's made, obviously, in an incoming government. But everyone wants the job.
Have you got somebody in mind now?
I've got several people who'd love to have that job.
Why would a ministerial portfolio be appropriate?
Yeah, I think it's really important. I mean, we have a Minister for Fisheries, we have ministers for forestry. This sector is actually much bigger, much more important, and much easier to grow in terms of a sector. So I would have thought a tech sector does need a champion at the table in the cabinet room saying, thinking about how things and how decisions are going to affect the tech sector. As such an incredibly important sector, it needs, I think, a face at the table, but also a champion at the table.
If you want to bring in students from Stanford to study here, who's going to pay for the quarantine?
Well, clearly that's something that we would have to work through, but I would have thought too is that that's probably going to be part of something that we put through in the usual quarantining system that we would have. So, for instance, at the moment, people coming in are not contributing towards their quarantining costs. Most people will be when if we are fortunate enough to lead the next government, but the PhD students, I think they're going to be adding to our sector. I think we'll be contributing towards that and making sure that they can come here. We need their intelligence, we need their contacts, and we need to have them thinking about whether or not one day they'd like to be here.
Why would you not get those? Do we have space for them now?
Well, we can certainly make things a priority. I think that's really important. We're not talking about thousands of people. We're talking about very high highly specialised people. We have our border policy still to be released, and I think you'll find that there are options in there for highly skilled people that we need here in New Zealand, because we're not looking just to today or next month or the month after. We're looking to the future, and this country needs vision, and it cannot stick itself in the past and think it's all going to get better.
Is that what Labor's been doing?
Well, I try not to mention them if I have to, unless I have to. I think we need to actually focus on the future. And what we know is that tourism is not coming back, international tourism, for quite some time. Also, international tourism doesn't have the high-paying jobs to the level that the tech sector has. And this is one where it doesn't have any particular water requirements, it doesn't have any particular environmental requirements. What it does require is intelligence, hard work, and actually needs a regulatory environment that encourages it and doesn't discourage it.
This is a $1.3 billion policy. Can you walk us through where the money's going to come from?
Yeah, sure. So we've got the figures on there for you on the pack at the moment. You got those for me, Laura? Laura's got my figures. Thank you. Thank you. Right, thank you. So let's have a look at this. This is for the first 4 years only. The 1,000 STEM scholarships are $10 million. The ICT graduate schools are $28 million. The global PhD recruitment program is $12 million. The technology infrastructure upgrade is $400 million. The targeted technology investment funds, and there's 3 of those, is $240 million. So that's for the first 4 years.
Where's that coming from?
It's in the budget. It's in our fiscal plan. You'll see it there.
And just on the fiscal plan, have you gone back and checked every single line to make sure there are
Paul
no
Goldsmith has.
Are
Paul
there any
Goldsmith
other
has. Paul Goldsmith has checked, and he hasn't found any mistakes, and nor has anyone else. No, actually, do you know what I think is really important is that we've just revised, the only number we need to revise is that we're on track for a 36% debt to GDP ratio in 2034, as opposed to the government's 48% debt. I would have thought 36% is not 35%, but it's only a plan, and 36% is better than 48.
Will you release the corrected fiscal plan with the correct figures?
So I'm understanding it's being put on the website now. Yep.
Your operating allowance, according to a plan in 2021-22, is only $800 million. The next year it's $700 million. Is there enough to fund this, plus other announcements that you've got coming in the next couple of days or weeks,
Yep.
plus what you've already funded?
Yes. Well, I think, we'll have to see what they come up with, obviously. I mean, I was staggered to see the Prime Minister clearly not socially distancing and no mask just the other day in Palmerston North in a level 2 lockdown. So clearly she's got no concern about it. I expect she'll want to let everyone else have a bit of freedom.
Should the alert levels change today?
What's that?
Should the alert levels change?
Well, we'll see what she comes up with. I don't have the health advice she's got, but I know this. She doesn't look very worried about a whole group of people around her and selfies going on.
Is that hypocritical, is it?
Well, I would have thought it was, most people would have thought that. They'll see it for what it is. People aren't stupid, you know, Jason.
Do you think she should apologise for that?
I think there's lots of things she could apologise for, but you know what? It's not up to me. The public will make their own minds up about who's hypocritical.
In terms of tomorrow's Monday's legal debate, are you looking forward to that?
Oh, I always look forward to debates.
And how do you think you'll go?
Well, we'll just have to wait and see. I think I'll do what I know this is that I'll do my best, and that I will be there to point out what all the big promises that have been made in the past and the incredible lack of follow through that we've seen from the current Prime Minister.
Given the possibility of a long, just back on COVID and the man positive after leaving managed isolation.
Yes.
Given the possibility of that long incubation period, should we be testing people after they leave?
Do you really think it was the long incubation period, or do you think that he had it before he left quarantine? So let's just find out the facts. I mean, look, just a few weeks ago, I said that that clearly the latest lockdown had been brought about by COVID-19 coming through the border. Jacinda Ardern said that I was clearly just, jumping to conclusions, and there was no evidence. Or last week, Ashley Bloomfield confirmed that it must have come through the border. I mean, honestly, I just think, I wouldn't believe anything about where this has come from, other than it's clearly come in from outside.
So they're saying that he returned to 2 negative tests.
Well,
What do you
there are
think
30%, I understand there's a 30% negative or false negative rate. And of course, on our plan, he would have been tested before he even got on a plane.
But if he's got 2 negative tests,
Well, that would be 3 negative tests. What's the chances of that one happening?
So
If it is discovered that he did have it,
Yeah.
it was a long incubation period, which was to see mandatory testing effectively, isolation, non-dated one week on.
The best way of doing that is to say you don't have a test, you don't get on a plane to come to New Zealand. Every New Zealander has a right to come to New Zealand. What they don't have a right to do is to bring COVID-19. And if they took that sort of approach, we wouldn't have all of these cases coming into our managed isolation quarantine system in the first place. So they should just get a bit tougher on it and stop being so weak.
but this one was tested. Did you trust that Paul Goldsmith has got it right this time when he checked your figures?
Look, last election, the current government, the Labour Party, came up with a fiscal plan that hadn't taken account of any of the increased costs that anyone would expect. So they had a $9 billion hole. Our situation is simply that in 13 years' time, we'll have 1% more debt to GDP ratio than what we had anticipated, still significantly less than 48%. So yes, I do.
Is it fair to scoff off $4 billion?
What's that?
Is it fair to scoff off $4 billion? It's $4 billion.
Well, just look at the Labour Party's debt, 48%. We're looking at 36%. It is really important.
Their plan.
Well, we haven't actually spent it yet either. That's the other thing. It's a plan.
Stephen Joyce came out.
So do you trust, sorry, just back to the original question, do you trust Paul Goldsmith?
Yes.
Stephen Joyce came out with an $11.7 billion fiscal hole, famously in the 2017 election. Do you still think that there was a fiscal hole in Labour's numbers?
Well, I think it was pretty clear they didn't take into account the extra costs that would obviously occur. And the thing is with these fiscal updates or plans is that they do not take account of all the other things that are going to go on in the economy. So from our point of view, we would expect, and that plan doesn't take account the fact that we would be able to grow the speed of the economy or grow the economy to the extent that we expect to. So that's not even taken care of because all you can do is work off the numbers you have.
Yeah, so do you stand by his claim that there was an $11.7 billion fiscal hole?
Well, I think it was pretty obvious that a lot of costings weren't actually undertaken. It's just like, yeah, obviously there was clearly a hole.
And,
Yep.
and in terms of the costings that you did when it came to those super fund reductions, did you take that into account when you calculated how much tax revenue you bring in, how much tax the super fund pays?
Sorry?
Did you take into account how much tax the super fund pays and how much less that would be given the business
Yeah, so
contributions?
Paul Goldsmith's got those figures in there. I think that what you'll see is our updated plan will be up on the website very soon. I've checked this morning and it was still being done. And you'll see all the figures in there. The updated plan will be there.
Into this one?
Well, yeah. As you can be in any plan that looks out to the next 13, 14 years.
Is this something that NZIER should have caught?
Well, I think we're a bit disappointed that they didn't pick it up either, but it also goes to show that, when the Secretary of the Treasury rang Paul Goldsmith and said last week that we couldn't actually rely on the hard copy of the preview document that had been sent out, their own books, because they had so many mistakes in them, I think it shows you it's just one, it's very easy to make mistakes.
Have you talked to NZIER since this?
Personally, I have not, but I understand discussions are being had.
Will you be looking to get your money back from them, potentially?
No, I tell you what, I want more money back for New Zealanders in their back pockets. I want $3,000 in the back pockets of every average wage earner in this country, and I want people to have more money in their pockets and not to keep paying out for the nonsense of Kiwi Build. Just think about that and all the other expenditure that's been wasted. Just think about what's happened with the Green School and all the provincial growth fund stuff, the waste that's gone on. Was the latest thing I heard recently was $40 million for a swimming pool. I mean, the whole thing has been treated like it's been monopoly money. So that's what I want back. Thank you.
Give with one hand and take with the other, given that you are cancelling the best start payment for the middle-income families.
We've also got a tremendous amount of money going into the first 1,000 days program for people with children,
Taking
babies.
cash off families.
Sorry?
Taking cash off
No,
families.
no, we're putting big money into the 1,000 days program. Every party has to have their own way of doing things, and we're very concerned to make sure that that money goes into where it needs to be. So the first 1,000 days program, which is a absolutely focused on mums and babies is the right spend for that money. Thank you.
Why does this start implementing system?
Well, I've just told you every party has to have their own programs, and we believe that the first 1,000 days of a child's life is utterly important, and we believe that the social investment model around that is very important.
So you're replacing it with a voucher rather than cash?
It's not a voucher, as you know, there's no vouchers given out. It's simply an allowance that people have that they can use, and they will have a navigator with them to actually help them go through the system to get the best outcome for themselves and their child.
You're not trusting parents to make those calls themselves with cash?
I think it's really important to understand that when you've had a baby and you're actually trying to deal with what is in many cases one of the toughest times of your life, when you know you should be extremely grateful and happy, and you are, at the same time you're dealing with everything else, and you don't understand the system and what's available because you've never been in that system before. As someone who was in that situation, I know fully well how tough that is. So I would have loved to have had someone to actually said to me, this is available to help you with this, what's happening here. And actually, because you don't know what you don't know. Thank you. Okay. Lovely. Okay.
Thank you.
Off we go.